Hello, Doug Hershey, Thought IQ. Each moment describes who you are and gives you the opportunity to decide if that's who you want to be. In today's video, I'd like to highlight how we approach energy blocks that we discussed in last week's video. Those blocks were gremlins, assumptions, interpretations, and limiting beliefs. Gremlin. That was your inner critic that tells you in one way or another you are not good enough. So how do you respond? Well, first you acknowledge that inner critic is present, but choose to ignore it, and then tap into another part of you, which we call the inner genius, which knows the truth. You must choose which voice to heed. So for example, when I read the requirements online on what it took to be Gazelle's international coach, my inner critic said, "You're not good enough." But I did it anyway. I decided, let Gazelle's international business coaches tell me that I'm not good enough. Assumption. This is an expectation and or belief that because something happened in the past, it will happen again. To get unstuck, ask yourself these questions. Just because something happened in the past, why must it happen again? Also, you can say, how can I use what I know now to change my plan and or approach? For example, a CEO had two employees and they just did not get along. They're always butting heads. He came to the conclusion that there was nothing he could do about it, and he was going to either have to accept things the way they were or replace them. In reality, he had to improve his own communication skills and be willing to sit down with them and have the tough conversation and try to resolve the challenges. Interpretations. This is an opinion and or judgment that you create about an event, a situation, people, and or an experience, and believe it to be true. Ask yourself, what is another way I could look at that? Or what would a friend of mine say about that? Or another way to ask the question is, what would someone who has a completely different and opposite viewpoint of mine, what would they say about the situation? So for example, I coached an individual who was recently promoted, and he was reluctant to hand off his older responsibilities. He thought others might not be willing to take on these tasks, but when he sat down and met with them, in reality, they expected to get additional work, and they were excited about the new challenges. And then finally, limiting beliefs. There's something you believe to be true and accept about yourself, your life, the world, and the people in it that limits you in some way. So how do you respond to that? You ask yourself the questions. Now, how true is that belief? How has that belief affected you? And then how can you let that belief go? So for example, suppose a CEO has a limiting belief that it is a sign of weakness to be vulnerable before your direct reports. Actually, according to Pat Lencioni, author of 5 Dysfunctions of a Team, the first step towards building and improving your team trust is being vulnerable. Our thoughts impact our actions, but with self-awareness, we can challenge our thinking and eliminate what is holding us back from reaching our goals. When we transcend fear, nothing exists but opportunity.